I'm happy to do it.
Hello, and thank you, everyone. We're going to get started. My name is Angelica Quixie. I'm a managing director at New Public, coming in from Seattle, Washington, so it's really wonderful to be here. And I am going to be moderating this conversation with this incredible group of folks focused on growth and sustainability of the open social web. We're going to have 40 minutes of discussion, and then I'm going to transition to questions from the audience. So if you have questions, be thinking about them. We'll take some questions towards the end. And I'm joined by Felix, who is apparently operating our presentation here, who is the executive director of Mastodon, which many of you know, nonprofit open social network made up of independent communities built on the ActivityPub protocol. Rudy, founder of Blacksky Algorithms, which builds community-controlled infrastructure for the decentralized web, starting with tools that give Black communities ownership over their feeds. And Rudy's also an affiliate of the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard. Rose, who is the COO of Bluesky, microblogging platform built on the app protocol and also builder of the app protocol. And then Sebastian, who co-leads Eurosky Social, which is a European initiative building open social media infrastructure, like account infrastructure, among other things, on European servers. So just a reminder to our panelists and to myself, please explain technical terms or industry jargon as you go. And then we are having this conversation in English, but of course, not everyone here is a native speaker. So don't speak too fast, speak slowly and clearly to help our non-native English speakers follow along. So let's dive in. I'm going to start with sort of an opening question to set the stage. Each of you is building within the open social web from a different vantage point. Community infrastructure provider, 2 major platforms, and a new European entrant. Can you briefly describe the core problem that you're solving and who you're solving it for?
I can start. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. So Bluesky, most people know as an app that is some sort of like hybrid between Reddit and Twitter. And oftentimes when people join Bluesky as a new team member, they're shocked by what percentage of the company is focused on protocol versus the app, and that's majority. And when we set out, our founding story is that we were an idea, of course, that came from centralized social, right? Within Twitter, Jack Dorsey had gotten tired of all the content moderation issues. And so the question is, how does the current structure change? And it's protocols, not platforms. We're not going to have new healthier social behavior online if we just build another centralized app with a fancy new feature, right? Like that's not going to change things. We have to change the underlying infrastructure, incentives, and power dynamics under the hood. And so at the end of the day, for Bluesky, our mission has always been to standardize our protocol and to bring the open social world to the masses. Our go-to-market and implementation for how we believe we're going to get there is we got to get users. That is the thing that gets the flywheel going for not only your app, but also for your developers to come and build on this protocol. And so I would say for Bluesky, we're focused on users as our go-to-market, and that's why I think we've been successful, but our mission very much is still how do we bring open to the masses.
Hi, everyone. I'm Felix from Mastodon. So to your question, what problems do we see in the market and how do we solve them? So the problems that we've seen, about 10 years ago when you started off, but it's problems that we still see is on the one hand, the privacy erosion of users on the social side of the internet. So this is particularly bad, of course, if you combine it to the second problem that we see with business models. So largely advertisement-driven business models together with heavy user tracking, it creates, of course, a situation that becomes worse and worse for the users, and we see this situation where the incentives are simply completely misaligned between the users and the platform provider. And for Mastodon as a we are like in a dual role that we, on the one hand, we provide the piece of software. It's an open source piece of software that you can put on your infrastructure and you can run with it. And this is it's a very technical thing to do, but it ultimately it puts communities back in control. If you think of how this was done in previous paradigms. There was never a way to control your social part of the internet, and I think if we combine these three things, so a heavy focus on user privacy, basically tracking as little as possible as we can from users, an ethical business model, and we will get to this a bit later in the discussion, what this can mean, but then also true control and ownership of that. I think this creates like a completely new solution.
Rudy, Sebastian, what are the core problems that you're solving? Who are you solving them for?
Thanks for the reminder. So our thesis is that the big corporate platforms are ruining our democracy, our the mental health of our children, and our community spaces. And we think that we've seen a lot of folks say that people are leaving these big social media platforms as like a trend and going to smaller, more niche places. They're going to group chats. They're just going offline. I see a lot of stuff in New York with like people throwing, like no phone parties. There's a lot of activism geared towards like anti-big tech, anti-AI. New York is a real protest city. I was born and raised there, and so I think that is the right thing. I come from the Web3 world. I was attracted to Web3 for the kind of like the story about independence and ownership. I think it was ultimately corrupted by financial incentives, and what I saw in that protocol was the opportunity to just have the good parts of Web3 and be able to build for a specific community, but build something that still gets really big. You could do it cheaply at first, it scales linearly, and then you then have the opportunities, if you lower the cost for things, you then have the opportunity to just do different tactics, right? You don't have to sell people's data, which I like. I didn't need to get a big venture capital check to get started. I like that. I was able to be really grassroots in the very beginning. After Blacksky kind of took off, we were known for creating probably one of the first moderation services that protected Black users against anti-Black harassment and misogynist war on the internet. We reached millions of people with that. And along the way, we built infrastructure for ourselves that allowed us to be independent and to fulfill the promise to a community. We think it's a prerequisite for communities to be able to have ownership and access over the technology that they're using and they're relying on to create these online spaces. We wanted to then offer all that up to other communities, because all along the way, from the very beginning of Blacksky, people were asking me, could you have Latin Sky? Could you have, Indian Sky, etc. Well, you never hit me up. Came later on. So now we launched a platform called Acorn that allows communities to, and the other important thing is, because I come from an organizing background, I very much believe, I'm maybe talking fast. I believe in making technology accessible for people. I think the problem with Web3 and a lot of decentralized social media is that it assumes someone is willing to run their own server, and a lot of people are not willing to run their own servers. And so we have made Acorn, which is a product geared towards community builders who are like me, who want to build for their community, who want to grow, maybe want to start small and then grow and have the intentions of growing to be really big, but may not be the hacker, right? The skill set of the person who knows how to do moderation and build a community is not the skill set of the person that knows how to do DevOps and do like low-level protocol programming. And so Acorn allows people to like launch communities on the app protocol, tailor the coloring, branding, and everything to their community, get started, and then grow from there.
Yeah, +1. We're following a similar path, I think. When I got in touch with open protocols, that is, in this case, AT-Proto, which is the underlying protocol of Blacksky, Bluesky, and all these communities that Rudy just talked about. I built an app last year, I think a year ago, which I tried to, or by which I tried to get people off Instagram. It was called Flashes, or it is called Flashes, still available, and it was meant to give people an introduction to this open ecosystem that are not interested in microblogging, but are more about like visual experiences. So it took me about 2 months to build that app. Otherwise, it would have taken me about a year, I think, if I had to build the entire app with user accounts, with moderation, all that stuff. But because I could use this open protocol, I was able to piggyback on what was already there. And when it came to a point where I said, all right, this is built on American infrastructure right now, and looking at the European ecosystem where we have a microblogging solution like Mastodon, but we have a total void when it comes to all the other social media experiences. There are none. IM was one that popped, but apart from that, I don't know if anybody can tell me which social media application from Europe like scaled massively in the last 15 years. So
I'm still using Be Real.
did I say I meant Be Real, sorry. Name 10 more. So I got together with the folks of Free Our Feeds, which was an initiative that formed at the beginning of last year, which tried to make this open protocol more available throughout the world. And we decided that we wanted to build something that could fill that void in the European market, that could give developers and creators something which they can use to do the same thing that I did with my app, to build a new experience within 1 or 2 months. Now it's maybe even 1 or 2 weeks. So what Eurosky is doing, it's setting up basic public infrastructure, moderation, account management, algorithms, that developers and creators can then use and hopefully build the next generation of social media apps, because we don't believe that we just need another European X or European TikTok or whatever we've been building for the last 15 years, because it doesn't work if you just copy the US platform model and put a European sticker on it. That doesn't solve anything. So our approach is to build the infrastructure and then give the developers something that they can use, so we get 200, 300,000 of these apps that are then interoperable and that users can use to share photos across app boundaries.
So we've heard a bit about the core problem that each of these folks are solving, what their organizations are solving. One of the most persistent challenges, though, for decentralized platforms is finding a viable business model that doesn't compromise these values that you just described. And when we're talking about growth and sustainability, Mastodon is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Bluesky has recently surpassed 43 million users. I'm curious, what models are you exploring? Subscription models, user donations, government funding? I have actually heard at least a dozen people ask you these specific questions one-on-one at this conference so far. But for our audience, what are you exploring? What feels like it's working and what is not working? Just go ahead, Felix.
Yeah, sure. So we're trying out multiple things. The one thing that came most natural to us is user donations. We come from a very grassroots kind of space and background, and that the community finances it. It's the most natural thing to do. And for us, this has, of course, seen multiple waves in course of the Twitter exodus, for example. There was a large inflow of donations that was really well received, but also not very predictable. But it's also for us, to grow in different categories within this space. There's obviously small donors who donate a couple of dollars or euros per month, but then there's also large, more like philanthropic donors who could donate more than 1 million with a single donations, and this is something that it takes time and a completely different approach to receiving those. What is strategically very important to us, though, is the expansion in new business models, and what we have tried out, in our opinion, quite successfully so far, is a hosting service. So Rudy mentioned it before that not every community or every organization or institution interested in having their own community space might actually be interested in running it, and running it yes, it means on the one hand a developer operations, a very technical hosting task, putting it on a server, maintaining it, updating it, these sort of things. Much more actually than that, but then also there's the moderation part of it, and this is what we are offering as a commercial solution to institutions. Our first paying customer, for example, was the European Commission, but there's a small French municipality that is also paying for it, and I think there's like a wide range of industries that could actually be interested for this, and it's not limited to organizations. It could also be communities without a organization behind them. And the third thing for us are government grants. This is really like a very honest and direct exchange of R&D effort and money, and it's something that we have been quite successful with in the past. But that after every grant there comes like a new grant, and there's always new challenges. And for us, it's really these three things that we are trying out, and we might not keep ourselves limited to this in the future, but I think there's a lot of business models, or a handful of business models that we want to exclude from the beginning. But yeah, these are the things that we want to focus on.
I can frame it a little bit. Very honestly, we're two years since Public opened, so we're not exploring how to charge users yet. But I think kind of just framing the conversation for everyone, how we think about it is when we're building a new online world, it's a whole world. And that means that in this world there should be cities and towns and pubs and libraries, and all of these different spaces should probably have different business models because they have different users they're serving, they have different profitability needs. And so going back to what's broken about the current world we live in online is, I think we're in this like medieval world where it's pre-industrial. There's very few landowners, and us tenants work on the land, and we build our identities, and at the whim of the landowner, they can take away our land, they can take away our identity, they can take away everything, right? And in this world, we also have one industry. It's basically, we've discovered oil, and we've decided not to invest in any other industry or economy because it's so lucrative. And that's the current state of things. And so the way I see it is oil drilling bad, period? Probably not as a whole. It's bad when it's the only industry and the only resource we're extracting, right? And so I think that's the problem here is what is fundamentally wrong with advertising is the model that it's on in a centralized feed or space where they're exchanging data eyeballs, for money, and that's the problem. And so I think for all of this to change, the way we see it is, first, you have to give people the right to own land and own their own identity. So like those pieces have to be in place. Once those pieces are in place, then you can have attribution. You can actually track, is this post my post? No one else can say it isn't in this world of AI and all sorts of like bots out there. That's super important to be able to cryptographically sign your data under the hood to say that that's yours. We needed all of these building blocks because what we think should happen is a more democratic way of operating where the money should be exchanged between the producers and the creators and the people who are then viewing that content. And so my hope is that it's not that it's so different in terms of there'll be payments, there'll be shopping, there'll be advertising, but what's going to happen is the money is not going to the platforms, the landowners, and sitting here, and then we dole out to everybody else pieces. I think that most of the money is going to go to the creators of value first, and then our value is somewhat of the distribution engine. We'll take a small piece, but I think we just need inspiration. And there's companies like Automatic WordPress out there. Then the CEO of Bluesky right now was the co-founder and CEO of Automatic WordPress, where it's a $10 billion business. 10% of it goes back to Automatic. 90% of it goes to the developer community, and they power 40% of the web. This has been done before. We just need to really follow the value of who is paying who for what. And so I think it's all about the order in which we think about the business models. I'm going to give one more plug, is Eric here in the audience. His company, Cobbler, is like one of the most exciting business models I've seen that's new because it follows the value. Where's the value right now on Bluesky? It's with links. Journalists are on Bluesky not just because it's good for them or good for the world, it's because it feeds their families. They are getting more traffic, more paying subscribers on Bluesky than in X or Threads. Why? Because we don't downrank links. Why don't we downrank links? Because our business model is not trapping people in one feed. And so in that model, what's happening is people are opening a bunch of news articles now, but then they run into a paywall because now all media companies rely on subscription models because there's no advertising dollars for them, right? And so that's where the value ends. What Eric's doing is he's basically bringing advertising dollars to that article, where then in the actual article, the display and our banner ads are from that advertiser or brand. And that link is a gift link. It's a sponsored link for anybody who wants to read it. It's intent-based. It's a very good value across the ecosystem. And so to me, it's not that affiliate links or advertising is a new business model. It's the order in which the value gets distributed. That's different and that's interesting. And if we can continue to open up the space for people like Eric to go try new things, I think we're going to find really interesting, much more healthy business models that align with user interests.
I'm going to jump in and ask a follow-up question because even though you described a feudal internet, the open social web itself still depends heavily on a small number of large players, of which Bluesky is one. So I'm going to direct this actually more to Sebastian Rudy, though anyone can respond. What does it take for a broader ecosystem of smaller apps, platforms, and services to emerge and thrive? And what do you see as the path to reducing some of that concentration?
Well, I think it's the approach that we're following to give basic infrastructure, to give them as much as needed so they don't need 100K to start an idea, but they can go with 5K, 10K to build something viable, to build a demo, to build something that they can show people and see how it works, because it's always better to show something that you've been working on than show a memo. I think Robin put that this morning, ship the demo, not the memo, right?
Demos, not memos.
That's so good.
Should have seen the talk.
I know. I have meetings.
So I think it's imperative to unlock all this potential that is there. I speak from experience because I'm a developer and I used to build these apps from scratch, and I can tell you it's a nightmare with this new approach where you piggyback on Blacksky or on Bluesky or on Eurosky. It's super easy to build something that doesn't start from zero. It already has users in there because you share that social graph, right? You can share even the social graph with ActivityPub and have communication with users across protocols. So I think this is why we're looking into public funding with Eurosky, just like Mastodon is doing, because I think building this ecosystem, it can't be VC funded from the top, because basically there is none in Europe, right? It's super hard to get something started here. So I think you need a solid base that can then facilitate these apps that can then monetize on top. They can have different business models, like you said. Like I was missing karaoke bar in that, but you know they can monetize through subscriptions. I actually use subscription model as one of my apps that monetize on top of that OpenStack. They can have affiliate links. There are so many different business models that used to work before we fell for this, all right, we need ads in curated feeds that are optimized for engagement. We had outgoing links at one point in Twitter. We had these models. And I think if we find a way to bring these models back, they can be sustainable.
I'm going to answer that question and also the previous question you had asked to the big folks. So Blacksky, when it started, we were fiscally hosted by a nonprofit open source collective, and so we were taking donations via the Open Collective platform. And it was after the big spike in 2024 when our first investor approached us and said, what would it take for you to work on this full time? I'll give you a check. And once I took that check, I had to make it a company. But because we already had this kind of, I was familiar with using Open Collective. There was like a project I had worked on before called Papertree, which was a way for people to pool funds together and buy groceries for each other, which will come back up in a bit. But from working on that, so we were already using Open Collective. People were used to it. We had actually built a way because of the custom feeds and algorithms on Bluesky. We're able to control the algorithm. So instead of running ads, we ran an ad, quote unquote, for people to contribute to us. It was a donation before. Now we're a for-profit business. It is a voluntary monthly subscription that is sliding scale. And so that kind of continued. Once you switch, if you know Open Collective, once you switch fiscal hosts, you have to get it back up again. So we lost all our recurring revenue and then built it back up again over time. Right now it's like $6,600 a month, which is enough to cover all of our technical infrastructure, and we pay our moderators on like a performance scale. So depending on how much they do, then they get paid. So it also covers and at this point now, actually, we kind of stopped doing that. Now we just kind of have static moderators and we just pay them a stipend. So that was kind of where things started at. That's just Blacksky, the community. Then we really wanted to, we have a 5-person team. One of which, our head of trust and safety, JD, is in the back right there. Shout out, dog. They're based in Amsterdam, actually. So if y'all are around after this, feel free to hit them up. I wanted to provide for that team, to be able to pay, like we're working really hard. There's lots of people who rely on us. Lots of people know us. I want us to be able to work full time, not have to work a bunch of, all these other jobs. So the other thing too is that like, I don't like VCs. VCs don't like me for real. I keep hearing about these good VCs. I don't know if y'all know them, introduce me. But as a result, I'm just like, we just gonna hustle. And so we're gonna figure out how to be a bootstrap business and have revenue. And like, I don't know how to pitch a VC and like fit whatever they're looking for. I do know how to get money. And so I'm just like, let's build. And we were approached by, again, talking about community will come up again. Like, it's not just our business model or what we pitch, it's like how I live. Community, a Blacksky member who had like shouted out Blacksky in Nature magazine, they did like some interview about how all these researchers are moving to Bluesky. They had approached me and they're like, how can we have what you have for Blacksky for our group? And so from there, I was like, let me think about that because I like that idea. I like that as like our way of making money. And so that has evolved over time. It's changed names, but now it's officially launched as Acorn, which is the product that I talked about earlier. We have, we have a tiered system depending on how many users you have. We've actually recently worked out this pricing now. So we'll give people everything and we just base it off of how many users you have. So we have a few communities, Latin Sky, Med Sky, shout out Richard Farrow. They're Acorn customers. North Sky, which is think of Blacksky community for LGBTQ plus folks, and their infrastructure is hosted in Canada. They're a co-op. They're a customer. The invite from Professor AJ Escofri out of Northwestern, who I met at Harvard, and he was also pushing us to like build out Acorn. So there's lots of like, and these partners, once we bring them on, they introduce us to other people because they're like, oh, this is really cool. And once other people see that you can have a branded website that is independent from everyone, right? We needed to do a bunch of the infrastructure stuff that people know us for, but that stuff is open source, given away for free. Like our app view that is independent from Bluesky. We have the whole network's database on a, several terabyte server somewhere. That was necessary to be like, you're not just bootstrapping on Bluesky, you are having something that is more independent. And if you were willing to pay more, we could even clone our server, give it to you. And so you don't have to start fresh because the backfill process has been like, we did a lot of on-the-job learning, let's say. So Acorn's going well. The way we did the math, I think we need like 87 customers in order to have enough revenue to cover our salaries. Then you add in some safes, that's not revenue. Grants, not revenue, but every little helps. And then the last thing that's been really big for us, which is that we landed a banking partnership. Thanks to someone in this room, shout out to you. We won't, but that they're paying us to build what would probably be the first fintech product on App Protocol called Blacksky Cash. Blacksky Cash will be two things. One, as someone snarkily pointed out on the internet, it will be Venmo for anarchists. So it'll be, you'll be able to use your App Protocol identity, so tied to your decentralized identity, send money to anyone in the app, and that the payments will be private. So we're implementing Cashew, which is probably, I think, relevant for folks in the Nostr ecosystem. I know there was someone who was here. Yeah. So that's like a privacy preserving layer. The bank itself sees this as an opportunity to reach the 44 million people that are on App Protocol and likely going to grow, right? So for a bank, it's about accounts that get set up. More checking accounts get set up. People leave money from the residuals that they leave in their Venmo accounts. That gains interest. That's how the bank makes money. We're like in talks of like how we can make that like a long-term partnership so we can both benefit from that. But for the beginning, they're paying us a significant amount to build this out as a first pass. Additionally, because it fits our ethos, we're also supporting group accounts. We want to be able to support kind of community financial practices like Susus, which is where Papertree started. So if you imagine the four of us were in a Susu, we'd all put in $100 every month. That's $400. And then we'd take turns. Each of us would get the $400. The project Papertree that I worked on before, there's 10 Susus going there, and the nonprofit that handles those Susus does a matching fund for those folks. So it works like a universal basic income. And so Susus are a historical practice that allow for wealth building in impoverished communities. My father was practiced Susus in Guyana in South America. And so it was very important for me to be able to like build a product that worked like that. In my talk later, I'm going to talk about how like a lot of what we build at Blacksky is just community practices that I grew up with. And so yes, you'll have the group accounts, you'll have single payments, and then we also want to bring monetization to the atmosphere. That's a big one for us. We think when we talk, so this goes into the second question, which is how do the smaller players get in? We see there's lots of independent hackers and no one really knows how to make any money. And that's because separately, there's not a lot of investment in the ecosystem. So people kind of get discouraged. They're like, well, Blacksky is doing good, Eurosky is doing good, Bluesky is doing good, but who else is doing good? And that's because it's an open protocol and you don't have lock-in. It makes it a little unclear if you're not willing to do ads or if you're not willing to like sell people's data for like to do some like AI thing. How do you actually make money? And microtransactions is like a way that you could do that, like a quick way to make, you have to like, it seems super simple, but if you make it so that it's in-app and it's in the SDK that you can add to your app, and just like what, basically what Bluesky has done with the identity layer, you don't have to worry about OAuth anymore. You don't have to set up a user table. You don't have to figure out how to like handle credentials. You kind of have a very specific structure for data modeling with the lexicons. we are wanting to do that same thing for payments. So we're going to publish a spec that applications would be able to deploy. So the Blacksky Cash app is going to be like what Bluesky did with that protocol. It's a reference application. It will hopefully, galvanize our existing community of Blacksky users. People will start using it. People will start adding payment links to their profiles. Creators will add payment links to their profiles. We'll try to work with creators to get them using it. They'll start sending money with folks. Hopefully that spreads kind of in a viral way. And then hopefully other application developers implement this SDK. And because we have this decentralized ethos, we don't want to lock people into these payments. You'll be able to, Blacksky will be like an app view for payments. So you'll be able to swap us out if you wanted to. If you wanted to use it with crypto, you absolutely could, feel free. You'd build that server yourself. If Bluesky, wants to adopt a way to do monetization, they could implement their own payment service, and users who are using Blacksky Cash would be able to still be able to use Blacksky Cash, and you can use the Bluesky payment service, just like you could use Bluesky with a Blacksky PDS. Yeah.
So 40 minutes goes by really fast, actually. It's time to hear from the audience if folks have questions. Like 1 and then 2, and if we have time, we'll go 3 and then 4.
Hi, my name is Koen. I run a company called Procolix, and we run Fediverse applications, among which Mastodon, but we also, together with Daniel Supernaut from Canada, we run pixelfed.com, and we run a lot of PeerTube servers. And the first thing I wanted to say before I ask a question is that it's also very easy to build an app on the ActivityPub platform. So I heard a number of times it's easy to do it with AT-Proto. I just wanted to be heard that it's also easy to do it with the ActivityPub protocol. The question I have, and it's about money, because that's a very interesting question, is if I look at these 4 people, I see their elephant in the room. Bluesky got $100 million from VC money, and yet Bluesky is the company that says, well, we don't know really how we are going to monetize that. That's a bit short, I think. I'm very interested in where does the money go, how long will it take before you run out, which you can ask all the other parties, and they will gladly tell you, but it seems that nobody dares to say that. Can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think it's a different, I think nobody says that in America because in America we're competing with X, TikTok, Meta. Sure. So, I don't know. I'm not sure that Rudy would say that you're necessarily trying to be the next Meta.
It's Reddit.
Okay. I think the reality is 100 million is a 3-year runway. We have 44 million users. That we have an app, a dev ecosystem, and a lot of development, and we have 40 people. 3 years is not much time. And so ultimately, what we have to figure out is where the value is, and either we figure out whether there's value in microblogging that leads to something that's long form. That's the big question, right? Twitter didn't make money off of microblogging, except with ads until Grok, right? Subscriptions, because that whole short form video to long form video, that pipeline of content in terms of monetization doesn't exist in the text-based world. Those returns aren't there. And so it's a huge challenge. And so the question for us is, do we try and build a product that's similar to these other giants, or do we try to do something different? And either you can think about user growth or you can think about monetization. And if we chose to think about monetization today, maybe we would stop growing. And maybe the goal then is more profitability, but that's a different business, and that's not what we're working on. So we care a lot about user growth. We're excited about all the experiments that everyone else is doing, but I don't think that until we figure out something that actually works, we're not that excited to completely change and turn the boat. Because for what we're talking about, like what Rudy's saying around putting in payments, for us it would be, it's that when PayPal first put payments, they spent 90% of their time on scam and spam. for the rest of, you know, like we have no time to think about growth. We're a 40-person team. So there's like this pragmatism around what do you focus on and when. I'm really glad that Rudy is thinking through communities and monetization. That's the beauty of it. For Bluesky, I think we really have to figure out user growth, or else then we do need to move towards profitability. Luckily, I think we have some really good ideas for like how to differentiate and where that growth is. And it is also on communities. We very much believe there's a lot of space there where other platforms are moving towards media and no one's focused on social. But I don't think that the pressure for us, like we have a different goal from some of the other communities, and it's like, where are you on the development life cycle? And so I don't think just because we raised VC funding means that we have to monetize. That's not also what our board or our VC partners are asking either.
Also, more people know Bluesky than Blacksky, for example. So them bringing in users also does help other people a bit.
Yeah.
We are running low on time, and I want to try to get as many questions as possible. So I'm actually going to ask the folks who raise their hands to all ask their questions, and then you all can respond to the questions that were they asked. Yeah. So there was over here, 2, and then 1 over here. So keep the question quick and make it a question.
My question was to the Eurosky, and if I understood correctly, you said that when you were talking about sustainability, since there is no VC in Europe, a big part will be public funding, and then on top of the infrastructure, you will use a lot of strategies that are already used right now, like subscription. So my question was, is it enough to replace venture capital with nation state that we know they are not like always good and do the right decision to produce totally different technology respect to what there is in the US that we are trying to change or make something different?
So keep that question in mind. Is it a great strategy to move from VC funding to national funding?
Actually, that was almost my question as well. So I skip mine.
Perfect. So we have one question, and then there was a woman over here who I'm also going to get your question in, and then we'll hear from all of our panelists.
Because this panel is also about the open social web, and I want to start with the analogy that Rose gave with about owning land. And like Bluesky and AT-Proto is built on this centralized registry. So how do communities safeguard themselves from disappearing if this central registry disappears? And yeah, that will be my question.
Right, so I'll just start with, I think we need to differentiate between how is the infrastructure layer funded that we're building and how are the apps funded that are built on top, right? So right now we're looking at funding the infrastructure, not through VC money, but through either bootstrapping or philanthropic funding or through government funding. And then let those that build on top choose their model. They can be VC funded. And ultimately, I think there needs to be some sort of backfunneling of any money that goes into these buckets that are set up on top of our infrastructure, right? So whether it's a licensing model or something, but this is in the future. Whether that will be able to compete with totally VC-funded monolithic structures that we currently see in the US, I don't know. We'll have to find out, right? So, but to build something like Meta or Instagram or something over here, I don't see a chance of anyone doing that unless you throw billions at that. So that's not the way to go. Like that, there's no way to do that. So I think this is the sensible approach to do that. With the PLC directory, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, well, luckily, yeah. I mean, this is a question we have too, and we want to make sure that this is not something that we are owning and controlling. And so one of the first steps we've taken is taking the PLC directory, and we're working with IETF and then putting it in a Swiss association so that it's not governed by us. So we're taking those steps already. It's just, I want to remind everyone we're two years old in terms of being open. And so we're a tiny team, so we have the intention. We're very supportive of all of the people here today. I think from Bluesky, we don't really see the tension between ActivityPub, Mastodon. We don't have those conversations at the top level, team level. It seems it's more like on the community side. When there were DDoS attacks, we were exchanging information. We're helping each other. We believe that this should be a pie that we're growing together. When it comes to Rudy trying new things, we're so excited about Rudy doing that. He can do things that we can't do yet because we're under a completely different jurisdiction, right? Like, we're about to hit 50 people. Europeans, if they're a company with 50 people, DSA, GDPR, all these laws start kicking in. It's completely different. And so I do think that it's about the ecosystem that we work towards together, and we all need to actually try different things and be clear about what our goals are, because we actually might have slightly different goals. And it's not only the mission that's important, but the how you get there, because there's so many amazing projects that just never saw the light of the day because there wasn't adoption. And so that's my focus, but I really do want other people to focus on whether that's independence, whether that's figuring out monetization. For me, that's second order after how do we get adoption.
We are coming to the end, but we're actually over time. But I'm still going to ask one last question. If you, and I'm going to ask you to say it in one sentence, if you were to define what success looks like in terms of growth and sustainability on the open social web, how would you define it? I'm going to start with Felix.
Clearly that users in the future, they don't even know that they are using an open social web service. It could be a microblogging service, could be something else. It doesn't matter which protocol it's built on. All of these things, they should not matter anymore in the future. I think we know that currently they still do. Basically, the protocol and the choices, they still transpire up to the user level and to the app level. And in the future, I would just love to contribute to a future that makes all this complexity go away, and you just use the interface that you prefer on this day, but tomorrow you might use something different.
Success, Rudy?
Yeah, I just, real quick, that last question. We have the whole PLC directory on disk. Like, it's less of an issue than I think people make it out to be.
And there's DidWeb. There are other DID methods to identify users. It's not only that one phone book.
Yeah, I think success looks like, I agree with Brian Newbold from the Bluesky team on this, where he says that like there should be multiple business models and multiple opportunities for people. I think success looks like you don't have to be VC backed. You could be a grant, you could be a hobbyist, and you're still able to play around and make weird and cool things. I personally like to say I grew up on the version of the internet, like I mentioned this a few different places, but like I didn't use Twitter. I don't really use social media. Like, this is my first public social media account. Running a social media company is my first instance of really using public social media. My Instagram is private right now. Some people still try to follow me. But like, Instagram is actually a really useful tool for organizers, and so we can't be.
To flashes.
We can't be. You don't get to ask questions. I lost my thought, dog.
Sorry.
What was I saying? What was I saying after?
We were defining success in one sentence, so I'm actually going to move us on.
Everyone can do what they need to go on. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rudy. Drinks on me.
Rose.
At the end of the day, I think so many of the social media companies today are not social, they're media. And if anything, they're AI companies at this point. They're spending more money on compute than social features. And so I actually think the opportunity lies with what is true is it's about human relationships and attention that we're all still trying to capture. And I think the direction, there's like two beliefs in the world right now. One, that the world is created from a top-down point of view, and we're trying to push a different view, which is that it's actually better if we create it from the ground up together. And so that's it. I think it's that simple. Can we do it together? And this is the room of people who believe in the alternative.
success?
I'm going to give this a European spin. So to me, success looks like a thriving ecosystem of interoperable apps. Thousands of them run on commons infrastructure here in Europe.
Thank you very much, everyone.